Dobrý den. Dobré ráno. Dnes máme třetí den, poslední den naší konference a to bude den Lublinc, nebo aspoň Lublinské dopoledne. Jsem velice ráda, že u nás můžu přivítat pana profesora Jeřího Bartminského a paní profesorku Stanislavu Bartminskou a že dnes vyslechneme jejich referát. Myslím, že je nijak zvlášť představovat nemusím. Pokud byste chtěli vidět něco bližšího, tak tady té knize, kterou už jsme představovali, ale Bartminští už u nás publikovali něco předtím. Tady těch časopisech Slovo a smysl 2007, Slovo a slovesnost 2010, tam máme některé jejich články přeloženy. A myslím, že dnes budeme velice rádi, když něco k tomu ještě uslyšíme takovou formou bližší ústní a takovou čtější mluvenou. Takže vítám mezi námi pana profesora Bartminského a předávám mu slovo. Jeho příspěvek má název Kognitivní definice o 35 let později. Takže prosím.
The floor is yours.
Proszę Państwa, mój język ojczysty to polski, bliski sercu to język czeski, but I will talk about my theme in English. Excuse me for mistakes, but you will better understand when I will my version present in English. The cognitive definition 35 years later. The title of my paper refers to my article written 28 years ago, entitled "The Cognitive Definition as a Tool for Describing Connotation." You have a Czech version in this book. Translates in translation in the Czech. It is eight part of this book. Let me elaborate in my talk on first let me elaborate in this talk on first the origins of the concept of cognitive definition, its gradual development, and the most important sources of its inspiration. Second, the reception of the cognitive definition. Third, I will also compare the concept of the cognitive definition with conception of natural semantic metalanguage by Anna Wierzbicka. In the second part, I will consider the principle of certification of features included in the cognitive definition on the example of gold, and the application of the cognitive definition in comparative studies on example of dom. And on the end, I will consider a new perspectives for the use of cognitive definition in comparative studies undertaken within the framework of the so-called Euros 2 seminar. Part 2 the origin and development of the cognitive definition. The conception of a new linguistic definition that for some times has been referred to as cognitive definition was born over 30 years ago and has its own little story. It was used for the first time in the trial issue of Dictionary of Folk Linguistic Stereotype in 18 as an alternative to minimalist definition postulated by Maciej Grochowski and taxonomic scientific definition practiced widely in the Polish lexicography. In 18, the author of Introduction to Dictionary of Symbols commented on the assumption of the definition in the following words. The content of the definition always corresponds to some knowledge of the word. Upon defining the sun, for example, a definition from academic dictionary as central celestial body of the solar system, a ball of gas with very high temperature, radiating vast amounts of energy, and so on. We would be in line with the requirements of logic regarding building real equivalent, so-called equivalent definitions, but we would perform a jump into another consciousness, another worldview, another culture. In our ethno-linguistic dictionary, we want to avoid such explication that would subsume folk ideas about the world under the concept adopted to the literary language. For the representative of the folk culture, the sun is rather the brightest light in the sky that illuminates and warms the earth. It is the cause of life on earth, and by moving itself determines the measure of time. In the trial issues of dictionary, apart from the definition of concept sun, other similar definitions are constructed for, such as star, cuckoo, horse and ox, or even Thaler and Rosemary. Consider, for example, definition star in Universal Dictionary by Dubisz. The definition is a celestial body composed of gases and plasma emitting light as a result of thermonuclear reaction taking place in its interior, and so on. In our dictionary, star is a little light in the sky shining at night. Its behavior and location may be used to tell one fortune. Everyone has their own star, destiny. The rule of this type of defining can be generally and synthetically presented below in 6 points. First, the definition answers the question of how people understand the words subjectively, and not what is the meaning of lexical items objectively. In other words, we propose the proposed definition refers to the epistemology. It reflects the consciousness of language users, and not, as in the case of academic definitions, for example, by Doroszewski, the objectivist realm It is answer to the question, what does the word mean and which object does it refers to? Second, the definition also referred to as explication, Wierzbicka used such term, reflects in definitia common knowledge about the word, as well as widely held beliefs and axiology. In short, the common conceptualization of the word. Therefore, the meta-language of description is colloquial Polish, while scientific language is avoided. Third, the subject of definition is a mental object. However, the definition is not limited by listing only its necessary and sufficient features for taxonomic purposes, but includes a whole array of characteristics entrenched in the linguistic worldview of this object. And four, in contrast to differentiating the meaning with the use of abstract semantic markers, SEMs, the main component of the cognitive definition is a stereotypical, that means conventionalized evaluation of the prototypical entry in the linguistic form of a sentence. And five, definitions are subjected to parametrization. This was already done in the trial issue in 80. Subcategories are singled out and called facets. They refer to the name, to it and its position in the language system, hyperonym, hyponym, co-hyponyms, synonyms, oppositions, metaphoric and symbolic uses of the entry in its cultural equivalence. But parametrization includes also such characteristic of entry as collocation, origin, parts, attribute, quantification, subject role, agent, title, processor, sensor, object roles, object, instrument, recipient, locator, material for making something, and so on. And six, due to significant extension of the definition, the sample material documentation is presented as a separate text block, separated from the explication. Sources of inspiration. The fact that the cognitive definition is based on the speaker's knowledge, on the awareness of an average language user, rather than on scientific knowledge, refers to the tradition of anthropological linguistics, in particular German tradition. It is the cultural and linguistic approach postulated by Johann Herder. Language is the treasure of the thought of an entire people. And Wilhelm Humboldt, each natural language carries a certain vision of the world, worldview, Weltanschauung, and a way of perceiving of world, Weltansicht, and the character and the structure of a language expresses the inner life and knowledge of its speakers. But not only this researcher, but the philosophical tradition of Immanuel Kant, objects of experience are mind-dependent, as well as the British linguistic anthropology in the spirit of Bronisław Malinowski, who said that to perceive the world through the eyes of a native and respect his canon of behavior. The understanding of stereotype adopted but our ethno-linguistic, cognitive ethnicity owes much to Walter Lippmann and Hilary Putnam. The latter tasked linguists with developing methods of describing a stereotype, and our cognitive definition is an attempt to undertake this task. The postulate to build a definition by grouping sentential contexts that communicate stereotypical judgment about the subject and shows the lemma in various combinations corresponds to the concept of contextual definition, axiomatic definition, or definition by postulates by Ajdukiewicz, and so-called partial definitions whose rule in Polish were introduced by Tadeusz Pawłowski. And he borrowed this notion from Wiener School, Carnap and Wittgenstein. The development of the concept of the cognitive linguistics in 1984, in the article entitled Lexicography, Definition and the Description of Language, scientific taxonomic definitions were criticized, and the justification was given to the demand for going beyond the necessary and sufficient features in the direction of the connotative features. In later in the article from 88 entitled the cognitive definition as a tool for describing connotations, the term cognitive definition was introduced. Its use was justified, and the four basic principles of the cognitive definition were formulated: content adequacy, structural adequacy, reference to a typical, stereotypical or prototypical object, and facet parametrization. The article is available in Czech as chapter 8 of book Jazyk w kontekstu kultury. The cognitive definition was introduced as a primary way to draw up articles in Słownik stereotypów i symboli ludowych, published in Lublin since 1996. You can see first part of this dictionary. Color is another, but number is the same. Reception of the cognitive definition in the community of Polish linguists, the concept met with a favorable response on the part of scientific community in Poland, which can be measured by the publication of a series of articles written according to the proposed design, proposed idea, and the spread of the term cognitive definition. The such word cognitive definition yields 2,200 entries on Google in 15th June, as of 15th June. The translation into foreign languages of the article about cognitive definition is a clear sign of interest on the part of foreign scientists. The cognitive definition vis-à-vis Maciej Grochowski's minimalist definitions and Anna Wierzbicka natural semantic meta-language. Cognitive ethno-linguistic, Lublin ethno-linguistic, stands in opposition to the minimalist, structuralist definition of Maciej Grochowski, but at the same time is close to Anna Wierzbicka's cultural semantics. I will elaborate on this only briefly. Grochowski postulated defining the meaning by using only a minimalist set of features understood as strictly structural criteria. For example, a cabinet is a thing which has been made so that people could store their own things in it, and the stool and the bed and similar. The definition consists. The definition of Grochowski consists of an overarching category and differentiating features, two elements. Unlike Grochowski, Anna Wierzbicka, similar to our Lublin ethnolinguistics, calls for capturing the meaning of words in the context of culture. Both the cognitive definition and Wierzbicka's concept have similar orientation. Also, the idea of the cognitive definition was born independently already in 1880. It was only after the publication of the book by Anna Wierzbicka, Lexicography and Conceptual Analysis, in my opinion, is the best book of Anna Wierzbicka, in my opinion, in which defining features were subjected to precise structuring and grouped into facets, that the concept of the cognitive definition has been enriched with the notion of facets and in a particular order of the facets that reflects the cognitive structure of concept was established. Let us now ponder over the question of what units and what differentiates the two approaches, Wierzbicka and Lublin ethnolinguistic, comparing the assumption of Lublin ethnolinguistic with her own concept of natural semantic metalanguage. Wierzbicka wrote herself, despite the fact that we work in different fields, from different viewpoints, in different disciplinary contexts, and with different methodologies, I consider our approach to be complementary and the direction of our research to be convergent. The complementary nature both of approaches can be attributed in the fact that, among others, both stand in opposition to traditional taxonomic interpretations of lexical meaning and adopt the principle of reconstructing of meaning by the speaking subject, which in turn is derived from the philosophy of language postulated by Wilhelm Humboldt. Likewise, Wierzbicka bases her definition on the intuition of a language user. Both conceptions converge in their explication, go beyond the taxonomic features necessary and sufficient to separate the object, and take into account all semantically relevant characteristics. Both refer to lexical, phraseological, paremiological and textual sources, including stereotyped texts. Both build definition using simple sentences linked together into coherent sequences that are grouped according to facets. Nevertheless, there are also some differences. Also, both Wierzbicka and linguistics assume the principle of simplistic analysis. That means rendering complex concepts by similar ones. Wierzbicka in her explication uses elementary semantic components whose number is very limited, while Lublin ethnolinguistics operates with much richer repertoire of defining expressions, which corresponds to some degree to semantic molecules in Wierzbicka's theory. Consider, for example, the definition of mother. Mother, explained by Wierzbicka, X is Ypsilon's mother. That means at one time, before now, Ypsilon was very small. At that time, Ypsilon was inside X. At that time, Ypsilon was like a part of X. Because of this, people can think something like this about X. X wants to do good things for Ypsilon. X doesn't want bad things to happen to Ypsilon. Our definition, matka, according to Lublin ethnolinguistics, is another category. The superordinate mother is a female, but to biological aspect, has a child, breastfeeds, transmits her feature to the child. Social aspect, looks after, assists, provides shelter, occupies an important position in a group, occupies the most important position, punishes and beats her children, gives advices to her children, and so on. Manages the home, gives orders, drives so on to work, scolds, but it's busy and so on. Is emotional and is understanding, is wise, is strict. Her instrument is a stick. Sets an example to follow. Is dedicated. Is self-sacrificing, disinterested. And so on. I will not develop this point. And following the principle, now the important part of my paper, that the most important part of my paper is 6. The principle of certification of features included in the cognitive definition, example of gold. If we put forward the postulate that definition should bring us closer to the linguistic picture of the object, or should even recreate it, we should adopt the principle of certification of all features considered to be defining and show linguistic evidence. It is expression of Anna Wierzbicka, linguistic evidence. I would like to say about certification. The authors of dictionaries usually do not comply with this principle, with a possible exception, Banco. The principle was clearly formulated, but Anna Wierzbicka in her book Lexicography and Conceptual Analysis, and in article published in Lublin in our book, the names of animals. Since the main objective of the cognitive definition is to reflect the way of understanding a given object by speakers or of a particular language, it is on the basis of the social accepted and language-mediated knowledge of the world, categorization of linguistic phenomena, their characteristic and axiology, the quantity and quality of features given in such a definition must be subject to the certification procedure. It cannot be treated arbitrarily. Popular knowledge is contrast to scientific knowledge. It can be encapsulated in a certain circle of social conventionalized and stereotypical judgment about the object. Such features may be objectively verified because they reflect the collective awareness and knowledge. Linguistic evidence encompasses secondary and figurative meaning of a lexical item, its etymology, meaning entrenched in derivates and present in fixed collocation and phraseological units, as well as the characteristic communicated but stereotyped text, e.g. proverbs, and presupposed in individual text. In light of this criteria, the definition of gold can involve the following features. First, being a metal, due to contextual embeddedness, gold, silver, copper, and other metals. Second, precious, valuable, due to phraseological units. Somebody is like gold. Coś jest na wagę złota. Something is worth its weight in gold. Black gold, coal. White gold, cotton. Gold medal, the best prize. Proverb, speech is silver, silence is gold. Third features. With very positive axiology, since we speak gold tongue, złotousty w polskim języku, złotousty, gold tongued, a talented speaker. Emotional approval, phraseologism, gold not human, złoto nie człowiek. Moje złotko, in Polish, my gold one, a tender address to the loved one or to close person. Another, indicating richness, a wine of gold, gold business, gold mine, derivates such as gold bringing, złotonośny, złotodajny, generating high profits, promise somebody mountains of gold, obiecać komuś góry złota. A yellow color, a very important feature, confer derivates golden, gold-like color, shining like gold. Złocień, chrysanthemum, plant with goldish yellow flowers. Now, numerous lexical blends or compounds with gold being. The first part of the word gold, złotowłosy, złotoskrzydły, gold color, złocisty. And following is shimmering, shiny, confer to gold, shimmer like gold. Proverb, all that glitters is not gold. In Polish, nie wszystko złoto, co się z góry świeci. And two last features used to produce jewelry. Secondary meaning of gold is product made of gold. Gold method to gild. And the last, something desirable, object of desire, gold rush, gorączka złota. A shortest cognitive definition of gold in Polish should be something like precious metal, most valued, of yellow color, highly shiny, a sign of wealth, subject of admiration and lust, used for making decorative and symbolic objects such as wedding rings, liturgical vessels, coins. And it is all. In linguistic picture of gold, we have only such features. Among the features mentioned there, there are those entrenched more strongly, yellow color, or less shiny. Some, a sign of wealth, are derivable from the another, precious. There are features that are denotative, encyclopedic, characteristic to the object itself, yellow, shiny, used to make jewelry, and connotative, resulting from the subjective perception, precious, a sign of wealth, object of desire, and so on. The boundary between the denotative and connotative features are blurred, fuzzy. Cognitive scientists question its significance. At the same time, a set of features attributed to the object is open. The application of a cognitive definition in comparative studies undertaken within the Euro-JOS seminar. The concept of the cognitive definition was, as already mentioned, used on a large scale in Dictionary of Symbols and Stereotype. This work is not finished. We are working on it. The experience gained while developing this dictionary and the concept developed within the Polish cognitive ethnology became the point of departure and offer for associates of the Euro-JOS program who undertake comparative semantic studies on the international scale. At the first stage, the analysis of the 5 concepts have been prepared: home, house, Europe, work, freedom, and honor. In 2015, the first volume of Lexicon Aksjologiczny Słowenik Sąsiadów, Lexicon of Axiology of Slavs and Their Neighbors, was published, devoted to house, home. Yesterday we have heard about it. Professor Wańkowa told about it. Devoted to house, and gathered parallel description of this concept in 18 languages. Lexicon but I have a copy of publication. The description, commentary to this volume. The descriptions of the concept house-home in different languages have been compiled according to a single agreed model. Following a general introduction and the presentation of the state of research, it presents systemic data, dictionary definitions of household names, hyperonyms, synonyms, oppositions, derivates, collection and complexes, loose collocations, and fixed phrases, metaphors too. Second, survey data answers to the question, what according to you is essence of the true home house? Responded a group of 100 students, as is in American Katz, Fodor, Braille, and so on. And the third, textual data, derived primarily but not exclusively from the high circulation press and the national language corpora. Also three type of data, SAT, systemic, answer to the question, and the texts. The authors worked in two ways. They presented the result of analysis of each data type separately, separate descriptions, or sought to integrate them in a synthetic form using the cognitive holistic description. The methods of defining in national dictionaries of the names for house, home, such as Greek oikos, Lithuanian namai or namas, Polish and Russian dom, Belarusian chata, Lemko chyża, Czech dum and domov, Bulgarian kiszcza, Serbian and Croatian kucha, French maison, Portuguese and Spanish casa, English home, and Deutsch Heimhaus, subjected to analysis revealed differences, but also some commonalities. In all 18 languages that we examined, the names for home house are polysemous, but the definition repeats two components: place and people. These two dimensions, spatial and human, are related in the sense that people usually dwell in a certain place, building. The notion of living, dwelling, is crucial for the concept home. The conceptualization of home as a dwelling place is primarily an event, not a location, because the function of home is the most important function, living, dwelling. The basic conceptual model for house, for home, can be reconstructed as a configuration of four facets forming an ordered whole, Gestalt. Subject, event, location, function. Even is the more important. Somebody lives, dwells somewhere and satisfies the needs. Subject and location may differ. Functions are the same. The following semantic components may be ascribed to the key predicate live, dwell, being the lexical representation of the facet, function. Function, to be somewhere for a longer period or permanently, at your own place, in a familiar place, separated from the surroundings, in confinement, in order to satisfy your needs, such as sleep and rest, protection from cold, security, being with other people, including taking care of children, nurturing, bringing them up, usually also satisfy hunger, usually also personal hygiene, washing, bathing, and excreting, usually also transfer of cultural models, speech, beliefs, norms and values, and sometimes also teaching a profession, learning a living. A role of the subject living in the house is prototypically occupied by a family. In the case of Polish concept house, it is mother. In patriotic profile of Polish dom, Polish mother. The identification of house with a woman is most visible in African languages. In Swahili, the word nyumba designates both the home, house, and the wife. The facet location is presented in detail and in many ways. The special physical dimension of house, its appearance, structure, materials can be referred to using a rich vocabulary, quoted abundantly in the articles and properly classified there. An important aspect of the concept home is ascribed as its axiology. In all languages, the opposition such as own stranger, close alien, inside, outside are clearly visible. House is on one side of what is familiar, close, and refers to the interior, which gives it a highly positive evaluation. There is an opposition, home versus world. In all studied languages, the concept home is subject to metaphorization. The first metaphoric extension involves the transfer of the name house to refer the nearest surroundings, country, and homeland, but also the whole world, e.g. in the Bible. Secondly, we deal with semantic narrowing with house, refers to the human body, also in the biblical tradition. An important role for the cognitive definition play also cultural narratives about home. In particular, the practice of building of house, moving from house, being at home, being in the house, leaving, going out, or expelling from house, and in the end, retaining home. A deeper existential and personal, but also social and cultural sense of what attributed to house by Václav Havel, Czech writer and philosopher, whose words could be used as a motto for our book. Yesterday you can occasion to hear it in the Czech version, but I have an English version from the same text, Professor Vankova. For every man home Czech Domov is one of the main existential experiences. What a man considers his home can be compared to a system of concentric circles, in the center of which is our own self. My home is a place where I live at a certain time, the place that I am used to and which, if I may so, I enclose in my own invisible envelope. My home is this house, Dom, where I live, the inhabited points of or the city where I was born, or currently live, my home, Domov. For me is also my family, the world of my friends, a social spiritual space in which I exist, my profession and place of work. My home is, of course, the country where I live, the language that I speak, the spiritual atmosphere of my country passed through the language spoken there. The Czech language, the specific Czech understanding in the word, the Czech historical, of course, I can speak about Polish. In Czech variants of heroism and cowardice, Czech humor, all these are inseparable components of my understanding of home, Domov. Apart from that, my home is also Europe, and my feeling of being European, and our planet, its modern civilization, and even the whole world. It is very good. And concluding remarks. After 5 minutes. Can be? Concluding remarks. After the completion of the first stage of the program, Eurojust, in 2015, and preparation for the publication of the first 5 issues, last is Home, Europe, Work, Honor, Freedom, the team of associates from 14 countries declared their readiness to continue the program. The preparation for the second stage, labeled briefly Eurojust 2, is in progress. Together with my wife, Professor Stanisława Niebrzegowska-Bartminska, we have preliminarily undertaken its coordination. So far, 40 people have shortlisted almost 18 cultural concepts to be developed using the cognitive definition. And you have list of these concepts. First place have rodzina, family, health, justice and injustice, homeland, democracy, solidarność, tolerance, man, good, love, faith, God, wisdom, responsibility, patriotism, life, bread, goodness, nation, beauty. The program Eurojust 2 is open. I would like to invite you to take a part in it. Thank you for attention.